Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. We'll chant Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verses 6 to 10.
न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितम् विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः.
We have concluded up to shloka number 5 in the previous class. So we are still on the first topic of this chapter, which is from shloka number 1 to 6. Brahman is macrocosm and Brahman is microcosm is the next topic from verse 11 to, from 7 to 11. Both are talking about the Shara perishable aspect. So first he is saying in this 11 shlokas, the entire perishable world, the macrocosm and the microcosm are essentially nothing but Brahman. That consciousness only has become the macrocosm. It is the same thing that has become the microcosm. That means you are that Brahman. Now when we more and more reflect upon these shlokas from 1 to 11, we should over a period of time go through a transformation, a change in our identity. Today our identity is of a limited individual, not of the limitless Atma, Brahman. So that will happen if we study and reflect and imbibe this knowledge. So in the beginning he said, he gave the example of the tree and gave the explanation of samsara. Brahman is the primary root. From that the secondary roots vasanas have come and how the activities have come and how they create more and more vasanas, and because of these vasanas the samsara is continuing. And having understood this nature, understanding the frivolous changing aspect of this world, we should become detached mentally. See, due to a lot of scientific discoveries and invention, constantly the world is being improved. You understand? And it is necessary, it is important that we should develop this world as much as possible. In fact, because of that only we are now able to have this class online, both offline and online, hybrid class. So, world should be constantly developed. But whatever development the world may go through, the very basic nature of the world doesn't change. It will not start becoming permanent. It will be temporary only. It will be passing, fleeting, transitory, impermanent only. It can't be permanent. You can't make it permanent. So, in today's world, this knowledge is even more necessary because since this world is developed so much, the attractions are so much which can easily distract us. We can get easily distracted. You understand? So, therefore, we need this knowledge to be able to, focused, steady. Otherwise, we'll go here and there. So, you must develop that detachment. Without detachment, what will happen is you will get completely deluded by this and then you'll be gone. So, therefore, he says, you develop vairagya. And with that vairagya, you cut the samsara and start going towards the goal, meaning completely detached. Understand that they are means to an end, they are not end in itself. So therefore, I will keep the ultimate end as the goal, and that goal is self-realization. So he says, after having detached from this world, you must seek that goal of enlightenment. So he says, then that goal should be sought. Whither having gone, they do not return again. Once you reach that goal, you don't come back. Meaning you become a jnani, there is no more question of falling back into ignorance again. And you should seek that primeval Purusha because you have the capacity, you have the potential. You can get to that limitless identity. And from that only this entire universe has come about. All this is said in 4, shloka number 4. Then in the 5th shloka that we saw last week, he says, Nirmana mohat jita sangha doshaha. Beautifully he said that. And then he said, Adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sangaihi gacchantya muda padam avyayam tat. In this shloka, in the previous shloka, he said you should seek that goal. Now, once you seek that goal and you become part of that, you become that goal, meaning becoming doesn't mean you are achieving something that you are not. You are already that. You are not attaining, you are attuning. You understand? We always said self-enlightenment is an attunement. It's not an attainment. You are already Brahman. You are already Atman. You are just realizing it. That's it. You're becoming aware. So, till the time you had, you didn't have this knowledge, you were identifying with the body. You had the abhimana with the body only. Body, mind, intellect, and the associated things, family, etc. Because this body came from my mother, father, and my children, my children came from this body. My siblings came from the same body from which I came. So all this he calls as nirmanam, meaning he will become free from the abhimana with the body once a person reaches that goal. So he's talking about what kind of person reaches that goal, and having reached, what would be the natural swabhava or the quality of a person who is evolved, who is a jnani. Now these qualities of a jnani are the sadhana for us. What is naturally there inherent in the evolved soul are the qualities for which we need to aspire for. You understand? We have to keep them as our goal and put in effort and start practicing as much as possible. So wherever possible, you should stop identifying with your body. Stop identifying, wherever possible. And then he says, freed from pride and delusion. Delusion means ignorance, not knowing what is righteous and what is unrighteous. Confusion. So once a person has got that knowledge, he becomes free from ignorance, and as a result of that, no more identification with the body. Total identification with Atma. And he says, evils of attachment conquered. Jita sangha dosha. Sangha means attachment to the things that we are already possessing. We are attached to our children. We are attached to our husband, wife, house, the stuff in the house, everything. So everything that we possess, to which we are attached, right? So he says, in the case of a Mahatma, he is not attached to any of them because he knows that all these are mithya. right? Also, he knows all these are not different from me for me to be attached to it. They are me only. You understand? So therefore, there is no question of attachment in the case of a Mahatma. Now we have to, through inquiry, we have to detach. Understanding its value. See, delusion also means placing an exaggerated value upon the objects and beings. You are deluded because you place an exaggerated value for it. That's the problem, isn't it? So therefore, he says that delusion is free from. So where is the question of attachment? For transactional purpose, he uses it and moves on. You understand? Therefore, no attachment. And he is not attached because he is attached to Atma, meaning he's become one with Atma, ever rooted in the self. Adhyatma Nitya. He is in the Adhyatma, totally rooted in the Atma, the self. And not only is not attached to what he possesses, he doesn't have any desire for things that he doesn't possess. This is what happens to us now. We are attached to what we have and we crave for things that we do not possess. So that's the desires. Those desires he doesn't have. He's become absolutely free, completely paripurna, and well liberated from the pairs of opposites like joy and sorrow. Like joy and sorrow means he's giving one example. But this entire universe is nothing but pairs of opposites. Heat and cold, pleasure and pain, joy, sorrow, censure, praise, honor, dishonor. Always you will see only pairs of opposites. And that is why another name for the world is Dvandvas. Dvandvas means pairs of opposites. Now you can't do anything about it. Right? So when I started from my house, I saw maybe it will start raining. And slowly, after about halfway through, good rain came, heavy rain, and then stopped also. By the time I reached, no rain. Right? Now we don't know what's happening outside now when we are in the class. Right? One day, if you remember, we had class here, and heavy rain was there outside. Right? So it will never be the same. It will always be pairs of opposites. Good will come and it will go away. Bad will come. That will also go away. And it won't be always static. This world is not a static millennium. Right? So it's in a constant flux of change. So it will bring opposites. Now the question is, are you going to resist these opposites, or are you going to not allow these opposites to influence you? In our case, we get influenced by these opposites, isn't it? We get affected by these opposites. Arey Baba, just now everything became all right. Again rain. This is too much, man. You start getting affected. And that will not be there in the case of a jnani. Whatever comes, accept as prasad. Right? Let it come. What you can do? You can't do anything about it. So therefore, he says a jnani is become absolutely free from the pairs of opposites means not that he will become very insensitive. If you poke him with a needle, he should not say, "Oh, it's paining." He shouldn't say. That's what you think. Because it should be free from pain and pleasure. What does it mean? Does it mean that he become a wood? No, he also has emotions. He also has feelings. Right? So the pain and pleasure he will go through, but he will be on top of them. He won't allow them to affect him mentally, internally. It's internal quality that he's talking about. So therefore he says he's free from the pairs of opposites like joy and sorrow, and is totally undeluded by this world, by this pairs of opposites, by the body, mind, intellect. He is completely free from delusion, meaning free from ignorance. And that person reached that eternal goal. Reach that eternal goal means he regains his original nature. Regaining means not that he lost it in between. he becomes aware that he is that Brahman. He gains that same old identity, his original identity. That's what he says. So, such a person is ever rooted in the self. Gacchantya muda. Gacchantya muda padamavyayam tat. So, such a person, vimuda, undeluded, that person goes through liberation. And then verse number 6. Let's go on to 6.
न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम.
So in the previous sloka he said, Amuda. Amudaha means undeluded. Amuda reaches that goal, meaning becoming free from the ignorance, delusion. He becomes totally aware of his original identity. He thereafter functions in that original identity. Now he is talking about that original identity, Brahman. What is that? Right? And that he is explaining in sloka number 6. He says, Nathat bhasayate suryaha. Meaning the sun illumines not. And what about the moon? He says, Na shashanko. Na shashankaha means even the moon cannot illumine the Brahman, Atman, self. And then na pavakaha. Na pavaka means not even the fire. Whither having gone, yadgatva nanivartante. Whither having gone, they return not. No more question of coming back to limited identity. No more question of identifying with this body which has had the birth, which will go through disease, decay, disease and death. No more identification with it, and therefore no more death for them. And after death, no birth also for them. That is my supreme abode. Here, Sri Krishna is not talking as Mr. Krishna. He is talking as Ishvara, the Brahman. Right? So he says, what he wants to say is, see, always knowledge is explained with a comparison of light, with light. You understand? Darkness is compared with ignorance. Light with knowledge or Brahman. So, he's saying it is light. What kind of light? It is that which illumines everything, or everything gets illumined by that, and nothing can illumine that. It doesn't require any other object to illuminate. It is self-illumining. That's what he wants to say. Because, why is he saying this? When I get to that goal, how will I know I've reached? मुझे कैसा पता चलेगा? I've reached there. The doubt comes. Huh? So we say in the class, if all of us are sleeping, and if already one person has woken up and is sitting and reading, and you also wake up after some time. When you wake up, you know you have woken up, and you know who else is woken up and who are all sleeping. You don't need anybody else to tell you that you've woken up. Isn't it? So, similarly, when you reach that goal, it is self-illumining. You don't need any other knowledge to tell you that you have reached. So, would you know it through the intellect? See, a lot of people misunderstand, because with the intellect we come to know many things, isn't it? We use the intellect and we come to know many things. Like, for example, certain words you didn't know, let's say, right? And then you're explained. You question, what does this word mean? You question it and you are explained. Then you now know that word. You know the meaning of the word. You start using it. It becomes part of your vocabulary, isn't it? So now, this was gained at the intellect level. Now, can you gain this knowledge of Atma Brahman also using the intellect. He says no. That's why he says that Surya cannot illumine. Moon cannot illumine. Fire cannot illumine. Direct source of light, sun. Indirect source of light, moon. Generated light, fire. Various examples he gives. With all this, he wants to say, none of this can illumine that. It is self-illumining. So from that, what we have to understand is, it is not understood through the intellect. It is not understood through the mind. It is not understood through the senses. It is beyond all this. It is self-illumining Jyoti. It is not dependent on any other source of light. In fact, all sources of light are dependent on it. It is Satya, all else are Mithya. That's what he wants to say. So why? Because many times what happens in the spiritual field, especially in the Jnana Marga, we try to catch it with our intellect. And especially when you are discussing subtle concepts, a lot of, especially when there are too many class members, suddenly everybody says, I'm not able to grasp, I'm not able to. One fellow has grasped it. Everybody, you understood? You understand? We didn't understand. So he may think he's got it. So maybe it is true for the other concepts, but like that, this is not possible to be understood with your buddhi. So in the Kenopanishad, he says, if you think you've achieved it like this, grasping it, you understood with your intellect, he says, you have not understood anything. In the Kenopanishad, very clearly he says, you haven't understood anything. There is still lots to be understood. A long way to go. So therefore, he brings the shloka. He says, the sun borrows light from Brahman. Now, in fact, you can't, how do you see the sun? Through your eyes. So you can say eyes are the light of sun. Right? But can the eyes see if the mind is somewhere else? Like it is now when I'm talking. I know, since you laughed, your mind is here. That's why we say such things once in a while. So, when your eyes are seeing, if the mind is somewhere else, you can't see it. So, what is illumining the eyes? The mind. Right? And can the mind see if the Atma is not reflecting in it? The pure consciousness is not reflecting in it. Because mind is also nothing but what? Made up of subtle elements. So it is also insentient. Right? It is also insentient. So therefore, it is also dependent on the Brahman. So it is the Brahman that illumines the mind meaning intellect also here in the context. Because mind is discriminatory thought flow. Mind is indiscriminately thought flow. Intellect is discriminate thought. Right? So therefore, mind in this context here means both mind and intellect. Atma illumines the mind, and then mind illumines the senses, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, and they in turn illumine the world, the sun, the moon, the fire, right? So it is the Brahman, the awareness, because of which you become aware of all this, all our conditioned knowledge. Whereas Brahman is pure, unconditioned knowledge. So it is not something that you can attain with your buddhi. With your buddhi, you have to take yourself to that height, and there you have to drop your buddhi also. You hold on to your buddhi, you will not get there. And once you reach, there is no question of coming back, he says. He's already mentioned this before, in the same, earlier. You should seek that goal where having gone, you don't come back, he said. In sloka number 3 and 4, he was talking about it. And then now he says that the sun illumines not, nor moon, nor fire, whither having gone, they return not. That is my supreme abode. Whither having gone, they return not. As I told you, you will never thereafter fall into a limited identity. Once you have moved from ignorance to knowledge, there is no more question of coming back to ignorance. So this he wants to say because you have a doubt. Look, after putting in all these efforts and realizing the self, you will again get back to ignorance and suffer. He says no. Once you evolve to that height, there is no question of you coming back. There is no falling. Even in the world you see, you evolve to a better level, better cleanliness. You can't fall back to the earlier unclean living. Not possible. So once you've evolved, you don't fall back. Possibility of stagnation is there. But here there is no question of stagnating. You've already become one with it. So therefore he says, you don't return back. There's no question of birth again. No more punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. And you will be in constant awareness 24/7, 365 days. Till body because of prarabdha karma. You understand? So he says, that is my supreme abode. That is the abode of Brahman. That is my nature. You understand? That is my nature. And that's the nature you will become, and you are that, you do not know that. So, see, this is very, very interesting. When you keep on reflecting on this knowledge and you go through this transformation slowly, you will actually see many things changing in your life. They say, Mahatmas attract things that a sankalpa comes in their head and it comes to them. Like they say, Vishwamitra ji, Swami Vishwamitra, sage, he created a heaven. So what it means is, your thoughts is what is finally becoming things in your life. You understand? So with awareness, when you reach that level, consciousness, which is even beyond energy. So consciousness, energy, matter. It's like Einstein says, energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So energy becomes matter, matter again becomes energy. And finally, it is all come from consciousness. Everything is nothing but consciousness. So that, when you're at that level of limitless nature, limitlessness in which you have identified, you have become paripurna, complete. So there is nothing you want. In fact, when you do not want anything, everything gets attracted to you. That's what you see when Sri Krishna is playing the flute. Animals are attracted to him, gopis are attracted to him, everybody is attracted. Why? Because they don't want anything. Right? And anybody who's constantly asking, you will not want to be with that person. Isn't it? When somebody is completely paripurna, wants nothing, everything gets attracted to such a person. And such a person, when, says, okay, can I sit on that chair? Hey, please. Somebody else comes in, I want only that chair, not this chair. This fellow all the time, you can't sit here today. You will tell like that. Other person, who has no demands, just says, can I sit there? Just a thought. Oh, please sit. I'm just giving a very gross example. So like that in the world, once you become that limitless, you may not want anything, but if one thought comes, it gets fructified. That's the idea of going and getting ashirvad from people who are evolved. Understand? Blessings from people who are evolved. Their words will come true. You understand? That what we do is, there is no other way you can make a person fulfilled except food area temporarily. Hmm? Like we have in Delhi and all, when the weddings are there, each one compete with the other. When we had conducted wedding for our son or daughter, we had 55 stalls. Huh? No, other fellow says we had 75. It was 20 less. You understand? Now, you eat in all the 75. By the time you finish 20 itself, you will be full. And, Baba, I don't want anything. I'm full. I'm full. That time you fall at the fellow's feet. Live long. He's full. He'll just leave me alone. So, the thing is that paripurnatvam, when you're in that paripurnatvam, whatever thought comes gets rectified. And in paripur, now the question may come, in that paripurnatvam, can a negative thought come? Not possible. You understand? When you are in paripurnatvam, negative thought cannot come. I've discussed this many times, so I'm not going to the details of it. So that is my supreme abode. That is Brahman, he says. So it is not something that can be illumined, doesn't require any illumining source. It is the source of illumination of everything. It is not dependent on any light. In its presence, everything gets illumined. It is self-illumining. Right? So you have to go beyond the intellect. You cannot keep the intellect and understand. When you say, I will not drop it, you will not get it. Because you're trying to get it with your buddhi. You're trying to put it in a test tube and see, Acha, ye Brahman hai kya? Abhi samajh aaya. Wo possible nahi. Unless and until you're ready to leave yourself completely, you cannot get Brahman. You want to keep this limited identity and experience limitless identity. Wo possible nahi. The river has to lose its limited identity, only then it will become ocean, limitless. If the fear is there to let go, you will not get it. Kya hoga, kya hoga? When you just let go, everything comes to you. That's what he said. Next shloka. Now, till now, he spoke from the view of macrocosm. Right? Now, that identity, the what? That Brahman, the what? And that Brahman is only has come down as this limited individual. That he wants to say. Because you have to now reflect. No? So, and then you have to gain that identity. So, not only this universe, in this universe, you, the microcosm, the individual, is also nothing but Brahman, Atman. Right? How the Brahman has become the individual, he is explaining. So when you reflect upon it, then you will understand that you are that true identity, Atman, Brahman. This is what Swami Ramtita in a very interesting way puts it across, says, finite is infinite. In his lecture, finite is infinite. What appears as finite is actually infinite. See, when we look at us, we say, I'm a finite person. Kya kar sakte yaar? Then he asks, how many actions have you done today? Then you say, yeah, I got up in the morning, I've, set my bed, I brushed my teeth and this and that. So maybe you will count some, maybe 10,000 actions. And you say, Nai kya? Very limited. He says, no. Who was behind you were behind your eyes, observing everything in the day. What is happening? You are the one who is behind your mind, listening to me now. Right? You are the one behind every neuron firing. Right? They talk about billions of neurons. You are the one who is behind all these neurons firing, he says. You are the one behind the blood flow. You are the one behind the digestion. You are the one behind the circulation. You are the one behind the breathing. Right? So you are thinking you have done only those 10,000 work, but you are the one who's behind all this You are infinite, he says. And then he gives the example of a cat. A cat looks finite, but it produces 6 kittens. And then from that 6, another few more, few more, few more, few more. Then that cat which looks as finite, that seed which looks finite, produces so many seeds from the tree, isn't it? When the seed becomes the tree, it produces further seeds, and then more and more and more. Actually, what you think as finite is actually infinite. It's a question of where is your focus. When you understand this identity that I am Brahman, you just simply flow in life. Thereafter, you do whatever you do with an attitude of sharing, giving. You will just flow. There is nothing you really expect anything out of it. You'll just do it as a dancer dancing, enjoying. No, you're not functioning thereafter as a beggar looking for something in return. That's why these are important to mentally meditate upon, these shlokas. So let's get on to verse number 7. So in verse number 7, as I said, he's talking about microcosm. You understand? Brahman is microcosm. From verse 7 to 11, Brahman is microcosm.
ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति.
Mamaivamsho jiva loke means what? Mama eva amshaha jiva loke. It means what he's saying is, I have only has come down in this jiva loka. That's all he wants to say. This my a portion, amsha, right, has become this jiva. That's what he's saying. A portion of my eternal self, sanatana means eternal. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. A portion of my eternal self having become a being in the living world. How? Manashashtan indriyani prakritistani karshati. Abiding in prakriti, matter, maya, attracts the senses with mind as the 6th. So what he's saying is, now you have to recollect what we studied in the previous chapters, 13, 14 and all that. Now we are in 15th chapter. Now, he already talked about Prakriti Purusha there. You remember? We discussed in detail. What is Prakriti? What is Purusha? That's what he asked in 13th chapter. Then in the 14th chapter also in the beginning he talks about it. Right? So, when you say Prakriti means Maya. What is Maya? The potential in Ishvara. Right? Like the potential of painting is in the painter. Designing clothes, designing jewelry is in the designer. Right? When they are coming and sitting, ordinarily you won't know that they are such a big designer. Right? And somebody tells, then you say, hey, this person, and he said, can you make one design for us? And when they identify with that designing potential, they create a beautiful design. Isn't it? So like that, in the Brahman, Ishvara, the potential is there, that is Prakriti Maya. Right? And when the Maya manifests, it manifests as subtle world and the gross world. Right? Before anything comes into existence, a mobile phone that you see in the gross form. Now iPhone has released 17. You understand? It only released 17 to the world today or yesterday. I don't know, whenever it was. Not 2 days before, maybe. But before that, it was already there in the lab. And before that, it was in the conception form. Right? So first everything manifests in subtle and then comes to gross. So Maya comes to subtle world level, then comes to gross world. This Virat Purusha, this macrocosm, right? So what he's saying is, this Brahman, myself, through Prakriti, Maya, I have, by abiding in Prakriti, reflecting the Prakriti, illumining the Prakriti. Maya is Jada. You understand? And Ishvara, illumining the Prakriti, matter, attracts the senses with the mind as the sixth. Mind as the sixth. Five senses we have: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. And all these are external mind. Right? And the mind which is inside is the internal senses. You can put it that way, isn't it? You can't see without the mind supporting it. Right? When you see also, when the sense perception enters, it is received by you only when it is registered in the mind. The mind was somewhere else, you would have not even registered it. So he says, through this, what happens is the individual is born. Now, what he's saying is what we've studied in the Vedanta treatise book, part B, first chapter. What is that? Human composition. Right? What is human composition? When Atma functions through the body is housed with 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action. So when it functions through the organs of perception, you become the perceiver, perceiving the world. When it functions through the organs of action, you become the actor performing action in the world. When it functions through the mind, the feelings, you become the feeler, feeling various emotions. When it functions through the gross intellect, you must understand the difference between gross intellect and subtle intellect. Gross intellect means when the discrimination is within the realm of the world. Subtle intellect means when the discrimination is between the world and the transcendental reality. Right? So like you say, this world is governed by laws. There are so many laws. There is physical law, chemical law, biological laws, philosophical laws. All these laws are there. Then you say, who is the ruler of all these laws? Controller of all these laws. Then the moment you ask that question, it is a subtle intellect. So when the Atma functions through the gross intellect, you think, you become thinker. When Atma functions through the subtle intellect, you become the contemplator, contemplating upon the truths of life, the reality behind all this. Right? So you are an hyphenated personality of perceiver, actor, feeler, thinker, contemplator. So now you know only this. And to this combination of perceiver, actor, feeler, thinker, contemplator, one name is given. Arvind Behel, Sonia, Lakshmi Narayan. You understand? All these names are given. So we think we are this. This is what has happened. But actually, we are nothing but that only. That Brahman only. That's what he wants to say. So that's why he says, a portion of my eternal self, having become a being in the living world, in this world that we are living in, abiding in Prakriti matter, attracts senses with the mind as sixth. Attracts means becomes one with the senses and the mind, and then expressing as Jiva. So this Jiva is also none other than the Brahman only. This Jiva is nothing but the reflected sun. Whereas that is the original sun. You can take that example. See, when the sun falls on different mirrors, different reflected suns are born. Isn't it? So the original sun is talking as it were. And the original sun is saying, Are Baba, these reflected suns that you are seeing are also me only. One sun's ray has fallen on one particular mirror. Another has fallen, another mirror. Can you separate the sun's ray from the sun? No, they're same. So therefore he says, my amsha, a portion of my being. You understand? A portion of my being reflect, meaning the Atma, reflected in the body mind intellect complex. One individual is born. Sonia. You understand? Surabhi. Who is this? Atma only. That's what. Who's saying? Atma. Ishvara is saying. So therefore he says, a portion of my eternal self is what is reflecting. Now the question is, when the sun is reflected through the reflecting medium, if there is dirt on the reflecting medium, the reflected sun appears dirty. But is the original sun therefore affected by the dirt in any way? No, not at all. Isn't it? But since we do not know this, the gunas on which the Atma is expressing, through which, right? So then what happens? We think we are these gunas. And we look at other people also like that. Oh, I hate that fellow, man. You know. But what you have to understand is pure consciousness reflected through that guna. Your consciousness reflected through that guna. They don't know. They are lost. Whoever is lost in perception, action, emotions, and thoughts, they are in ignorance. But when you gain this knowledge, when you reflect upon this, then you won't get lost. Even if you get lost, you won't be lost for a long time. You'll quickly withdraw. You'll quickly get back. See, this is what happens in our case as we reflect upon this knowledge. We can't be lost for a long time if you are a student of Vedanta. You know, you may sometimes get lost, get involved. But you'll quickly realize and you'll get back. You can't stay there for long when you understand this. It is that pure consciousness reflecting through the various gunas. So because of the gunas, they are like that. Now what you can do? They don't know. They are involved. You know why you want to get involved. Why you want to keep people? Why you want to call people by names? What is the point? You understand? To relate with them, you understand that they have gunas and relate. But you don't have to have a certain judgment based on it. You're getting involved. How can such people be there, man? How can they function like that? I can't. I can't believe this. Which means you have not understood any of this. That's why he says, it is the pure consciousness that has come down as this jiva. So this is what he's going to discuss from verse 7 to 11. That jiva, you, nothing but that Brahman. So when you see anything, when you're perceiving anything, is your attention upon what is perceived or what makes you perceive? In the case of a Mahatma Jnani, the attention will always be on what is the source, awareness. What makes me perceive. In our case, what is perceived? And we get involved. मुझे क्यों कम मिला, उनको क्यों ज्यादा मिला, मे बी उतना ही एफर्ट डाला. You understand? So what is happening? You're getting involved. And once you get involved, what happens? We already discussed in the first two shlokas. You create more vasanas. You are strengthening your samsara. Strengthening your samsara means what? You are extending your stay in jail for a few more days. Supposing you have gone into the jail for committing a murder and you have to serve, let's say, for 14 years, they said. 13 and a half years you served. Another 6 months you are going to be released. And then you got involved in one brawl there and you murdered somebody there. Another 14 years. You understand? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe longer. So you are doing this. As it is, without this knowledge, you are here now. Now, when you get involved in it totally, you will create more vasanas. How do you remember? How do you create vasanas? Remember, we discussed that. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayat. More and more you dwell upon the world, unconscious, unintelligent, indiscriminate thought flow creates attachment, desires. The vasanas gets formed. And once you have vasanas means you have to go through samsara. Why you want to go through the samsara? Right? So that's why he says, this is what is happening, take it or leave it. Pure consciousness functioning through the Prakriti, which is inherent in pure consciousness. The Maya Prakriti is what? The lower nature of Brahman. So that when it reflects, the individual comes. Just like when sunlight falling on different reflecting medium, the reflected suns manifests. And if the reflecting medium mein kuch galti, some dirt is there, that will be seen in the reflected sun. But that is not reflected in the original sun. You understand? Even though you seem to be tainted, you are not tainted. You are beyond taint. You are nirmala, niranjana. Right? They give the names for people, no? Nirmala, Niranjan. You are beyond dirt. So that's what he's saying. So when the perception is happening itself, you can actually worship God. You don't really need some huge manifestation to be reminded of God. Right? People ask, where will I see God? Yahin par. There. When I'm seeing, if I shift my attention from what I see to what makes me see, I'm doing worshipping. Yes or no? But otherwise, you need to go to a place of worship and then be inspired, which is fine. Nothing wrong. Right? But wherever you are, whatever you are doing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling, thinking, in that also you can see the divinity. And the more you start seeing the divinity, the less you get involved and less you create samsara, less you create bondage for yourself. Otherwise, you will create bondage. So, if you're seriously interested in worshipping God, you can do it right now. Right here. If you want to have some fun, then you can do it going to a lot of places. Right? But there also when we go, especially in Tirupati Balaji and all, I've not been to Vaishnava Devi. I can't talk about it. But, Tirupati Balaji I've been a few times. Now, there's huge queue. Even if you go through certain, the different queues are there. You have to be in the queue for 3-4 hours. And sometimes maybe longer. You get so close and they're also pushing you. Jargandi. And if you're true, genuine devotee, you'll close your eyes. You will close your eyes. You cannot keep it open. You won't. You are closing your eyes. As you're coming closer to the Bhagavan, they push you. By the time you open, Bhagavan bahut piche. You are somewhere else. Right? So what is it saying? Bhagavan is within you. That source, which is manifested through the senses. And this reflected consciousness, Jiva, is what I am thinking myself to be today, colored by various gunas in me. Right? But actually speaking, I am that original consciousness, OC, or pure consciousness, PC, not this reflected consciousness, RC. This Jiva. This Jiva is also none other than Paramatma only. That's all he's saying. Unfortunately, due to ignorance, we do not know this. So we have reduced, limited, beggar identity today. Only thing, each one begs different begging bowl है. किसी के पास aluminium begging bowl, किसी के पास ever silver, किसी के पास original silver, किसी के पास gold, किसी के पास platinum, diamond studded platinum, gold, सब कुछ. बस, but everybody is begging. That's all he's saying. Beautiful shloka for us to think and reflect. Let's conclude now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.